How's everybody doing? Yeah? Okay. Do you need to stand up, stretch a little bit? Yeah? Okay, go ahead. It's okay. You can use some of my 15 minutes. You've got like 10 seconds. Hurry. No need, Really? Wow. All right. Then you better pay like super close attention to my talk. Okay. So actually, it's interesting in my introduction, they didn't really talk about the chain reaction project, which I'll be talking about today. And the reason for that is because in my role in Mercy Relief, and this was something I realized when I was sitting in my chair. I was listening to everybody and they're like entrepreneurs, and I was like, oh, when I transitioned from the Chain Reaction Project, which is an organization I'll tell you about a bit, into my role in Mercy Relief, everybody was like, oh, now you have a real job. I was like, what do you mean now I have a real job? People don't count being an entrepreneur or like those 6 years of like running at that organization as a real job. And like, now you have a real job. I was like, oh, And then I was sitting there, I was listening to everybody, I was thinking about the Chain Reaction Project, and I realized that, and when I was introduced and I came up on stage, and now I'm not really an entrepreneur anymore, but I was like, I feel exactly the same. And when I go to work now, I do the exact same things that I always did with the Chain Reaction Project when I was an entrepreneur. And then I realized that this entrepreneur thing actually is just you. It's who you are as a person. It really is. It's one of the things that excites you. It's the kind of attitude that you bring to work. It's not actually limited to whether or not you start your own company or you don't. So for those of you who don't win $100,000, and for those of you who like fail a million times and are one of those that never succeeded at being an entrepreneur, actually it's okay. Because it isn't limited to that, Being an entrepreneur, it's just you. It's who you are, right? It's what you take to work with you. It's your mindset. It's your attitude. Anyway, this wasn't really part of my speech. These are just extra words of wisdom that came to me while I was sitting there listening to everybody else. So let me tell you a little bit more about myself, about my journey. One thing that I've learned is that it definitely seems to help to fail when you're young. It seems that a lot of entrepreneurs start from that. So there I was, MGS, and then failed O-levels. So many points, I don't think I could get even ITE anywhere. I couldn't get in, too many points. And so at that point, a lot of people said, like, oh, so I guess you go overseas to study. And then my mother said, why would I send you overseas? You're going to fail over there and waste my money. You must as well stay here and, waste less money failing here. And I was like, oh my God, this kind of logic. People always, fail, then you send overseas. My mother was like, no. So I was like, okay. So I said, then now what am I supposed to do? So she said, oh, then you take your O-levels again. And I was like, people don't take their O-levels again, right? After you fail, then you have to choose. You've got your different choices, or, She said, no, you do it again. And I was like, okay, this is weird, but okay, never mind. So I did it again, But one thing was during this whole time, and finally when I did it again, luckily this time I did better. But one thing that I was very passionate about at the time was netball. With school, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I was like, then there's no point studying biology. I don't think I want to go into biology. And I was like, what about geography? I mean, really, when are you going to use geography when you grow up? Chemistry, come on, you can remember any of those things? I can't even, really, right? So I was like, no point. In school, I just couldn't see the point, So I was like, it's okay. But netball, on the other hand, I was like, wow, this is very exciting, team sport. And so for me, everything that I learned in school, so much of it I really learned on the netball court, And I ended up playing for my school. Even when you're failing, they'll still let you play. They play for your school and then ended up playing for clubs and eventually playing for Singapore. And during that time, I think one of the biggest things that I learned, so much more I learned from my time on the bench than my time on the court. It's very easy when you're main seven. It's very easy to take the court and to play. It's very difficult to be on the bench for a major game that's held in Singapore and all your family and your friends come down and then you don't play and your auntie's like, you sick? And you say, yeah, I'm sick. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, what are you going to say? Like, I'm not, So, I think these were all like little experiences along the way that kind of shaped me. After that, I managed to graduate, so don't worry, fail, it's okay. Do enough time, somehow, at some point, maybe you'll succeed at something. And then I thought, okay, you know what? All my life, I've always wanted to be a helicopter paramedic. You know what? I'm going to be a helicopter paramedic. And then, you know what happened next? I came back to Singapore and I worked at Standard Chartered Bank. And there's nothing wrong with Stan Chart, okay? For those of you here who work at Stan Chart or plan to work in a bank, it's just that I never saw myself in a bank. I wanted to be a helicopter paramedic, right? This is a far cry from the earlier image. That one was quite cool, right? When you thought it was me, in that second, you were impressed. Come on, admit it, right? Yeah, and then you saw this, you're like, not so much, right? So I was in marketing and events, this was not like my usual get-up for every day, but it was like Young Apprentice Academy, that kind of thing. And so I was at StanChart for 2 years. And then after StanChart, and because I was in marketing and events, right, there were a lot of events. So we always were trying to think, okay, you have to go after sponsorships or partnerships, and then we were always trying to save money so we can put more into the event. So I would host a lot of the events. So I MC, and I thought, maybe I should go into TV. Maybe that's my calling. I'm going to TV. And I said, okay, what TV should I go into, right? Channel 8, Kerola. Remember my O-levels? Yeah, C5. C5, 2 times was still C5, but never mind. So then I was like, okay, what about Channel 5? Then I was like, Channel 5 also, this kind of thing, not regional, I don't know. I mean, I was like, at the time, I was like, okay, then one of my friends was like, what about Channel News Asia? I was like, Channel News Asia? I was like, also can. Sounds quite exciting, read the news, So I ended up at Channel News Asia. And, I have a lot of looks, okay, y'all. So, I thought, going to Channel News Asia, I was like, okay, it can go straight to presenting, can MC for so many years already, right? 2 years, but anyway, so I thought, no, it doesn't work like that. It's like you slave like crazy first, and you work the desks, there's a lot of writing, but that's a whole other topic for another day. But it was during my time at Channel News Asia when I found myself taking part in this mountain bike race in Timor-Leste. This is Timor-Leste, okay? And I ended up being on this all-female team that took part in this race that went across 450 kilometers of Timor. Okay, if I had known that the terrain was like this, I can tell you I would have said no, okay? But at the time I didn't know, but Timor, they had assassination attempts on the president, very turbulent history. I was like, wow, this is very exciting. So my friends said, hey, we want to form a team of 4, take part in this mountain bike race. I had just retired from netball, so I was like, yeah, sounds great. Yeah, count me in, right? Got there, I almost died, and I looked out the window from the plane, I was like, oh, man. But never mind, they're ready, what to do. So the thing is, in the lead up to this particular race, right, the more that I learned about Timor as a country and its history, and actually the significance of this particular race, which was a ride for peace, and it marked the 10th year of the referendum of independence in a nation that had a very turbulent history. And while we were there, we thought, could we use the adventure to do more than just ride our bikes, take pictures, selfie, act cool, and we thought, maybe we could do more than that. And so we ended up raising funds and awareness for an organization on the ground called Hiam Health that dealt with malnutrition. And now, up to this point in my life, I had always wanted to give back. I had always wanted to volunteer. But the problem is, I like animals, I like dogs, right? I like old people, I also like children, right? Then where to start? I like it all. What are you going to do? There's just so many things I thought, I'll wait for something to hit me, for something to strike me. Then I'll know that's the thing, right? So nothing struck me, but we had no choice because in Timor there were so many NGOs, but we found ourselves actually staying at this particular NGO in the days leading up to the race. And we really, really got to understand the work that they were doing. And while we were there, we met this lady called Rosaria Martin Sucruz. And she was the Timorese director of Hiam Health. And she was fiery and she was passionate. And when she spoke, it was like when the speaker before us, when he talks about how he feels about the animals and about the dogs, it speaks to you. And these are the people, which is how Rosaria was as well, where you say to yourselves, I might not know how to deal with malnutrition, but Rosaria, I want to stand behind her. I want her to know that she's not alone there fighting in the trenches, and I will do what I can to support her in her fight against malnutrition. And she had that same spark that you do as well. And it does, it speaks to people. And so starting from that, we said, what can we do? Let's go back to Timor again next year, and let's use adventure again as a platform to bring more people together, to raise more funds and raise more awareness for Hiam Health. And so this is how I started my first entrepreneur, social enterprise called the Chain Reaction Project 6 years ago with 3 other friends. And so, this picture already. Anyway, and so what we did was we essentially started to use adventure because I understood sports and adventure, and we used that to raise awareness and funds for different causes in the region. And so we ran trip after trip. We started with Timor, and then we ended up in Cambodia, went to Vietnam, to Thailand. We worked with partners now for over 6 years. And then corporates came to us, and they said, oh, can you take what you're doing and do that for my staff as well? It looks really exciting. It looks interesting. You know, we've been working with the same organizations. It's a sustainability, continuity. So during that time was when I decided that I should leave Channel News Asia to focus on this, right? But of course, as you know, as everybody has established, when you start an enterprise, you have no money. But I was like, it's okay, I can MC on the side. So then I thought, I'll set up one business to support my other no money business, right? So I was like, I'll set up my MC company here, which is just me, but sometimes when you deal with vendors, they want you to have a company name, so I'll have that. And then, so that's what I was doing. So for 2 years, I was MCing, and then making enough money so that I could focus on the chain reaction project, right? And then over time, we ended up working with companies, we ended up working with schools, and then before you know it, somehow, over 6 years, it kind of like grew and grew. And people came with us, they trusted us. Luckily, we didn't lose anybody along the way. And you know, in terms of funds that were raised, in the beginning, you know, we were struggling so hard in that first trip to raise that $50,000. And then what we realized was that we were trying to do it all ourselves, you know. And it was at this point that really, along the way, we said, in the beginning, it was, okay, the more extreme our adventure is, I think the more funds we can raise. But then it got to the point that the adventure was so extreme, I was like, seriously, I'm going to kill myself. This is not working. And also there's a point when you just tap out your whole network and nobody wants to give you money anymore. And when you come, they like leave. So this is sort of when we said, you know what? We have so many people coming on our trips with us. You know, we need to make sure that we don't just inspire people, but we empower people as well, right? To go back out there and to be that change. And so it was that shift that really saw this kind of funds being raised, but by the catalysts, as we call them, that joined us. So this is the countries. And then, that was in 2009. And then this year, you know, it got to a point where TCRP was sustainable, it was growing. And then people always think that an enterprise is successful by how big it grows and how much you scale. But it got to a point when people were saying like, okay, so what's next for you guys? You know, you're going to grow bigger, you're going to grow your team and all that. And I realized that I didn't really actually want to grow it much bigger. I didn't really want to scale it much more. I was very happy with the size that it's at right now. I was happy with my team and its size. I was happy with the small impact that we were having, but the level of involvement and engagement we were able to have. You know, and so for me, we were at a stage with the Chain Reaction Project where things were comfortable, but I was ready for my next step. But not necessarily with the Chain Reaction Project, but perhaps in the same line. And then this is where, you know, in the beginning of this year, Mercy Relief asked if I would join their board. And, you know, for me, it has always been about the people on the ground. It has always been about the Rosarias who are out there. And so when Mercy Relief asked me, so Mercy Relief basically is a humanitarian organization. It's a charity registered in Singapore that focuses on the space of disaster relief. So for example, in the case of Nepal, we would head in after the earthquake, or Myanmar after the floods. We also do a lot of work around the preparation of disaster resilient communities so that they're better able to cope with disasters when they do strike. And so, well, I was thinking about Mercy Relief, and I was with them on the board, and I was in Nepal after the earthquake. And at the time, they had asked me, they said, would you consider the executive director role with Mercy Relief? And it's a much bigger role, I feel, than I am right now, even. You know, it's a big role. And so I thought, you know, and normally when there are opportunities, I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. But for this one, I was like, I need to think about it. But when I was in Nepal, I was walking in Bhaktapur, which is where a lot of the really beautiful temples are, and there was so much destruction. And I walked past this house, and I saw this lady just going in and out and in and out, just clearing the rubble from her house, so methodically in and out. And, you know, I made eye contact with her, and she looked so sad. She looked so sad. And so I went over and I spoke to her with my translator, and I learned that she was one of 3 sisters, and that her younger sister and her one nephew and one niece were killed in the earthquake. And so she was helping to just clear the rubble, to just clear her mind, and to have something to do. And I asked, and I said, have you guys received any aid? And she and her older sister said, yeah, that they had, but they turned it down so that it could go to others who needed it more. And I think in that moment I realized that that for me, the things that have always driven me are the people like this lady or like Rosaria who are out there and who are fighting. They're not waiting for handouts. They're not waiting for people to come in and save them. And I think this is for me, clearly in the right line, emotional, everything, so passionate. Okay, where was I? So, the thing is, I think that for me, when I look at entrepreneurship, it comes back to really what I'm passionate about. You talk about resourcefulness, you talk about creativity, you talk about having the grit to stick things out. It needs to come from somewhere. And if you don't have that, if you don't really, 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 really want something, there's a very high chance that you're not going to succeed. So I would say to all of you on your entrepreneurial journey, that if you don't really, really, really want it, you should think twice before you actually start. But also realize that the more that you learn sometimes, the more that you realize you want something, to also not be afraid to start. So there's a bit of contradictory advice. You're like, now what do I do, right? But my time's up. So, you have to go back and you have to think about it. I had one more slide. I thought I would put some wise thoughts together. So you can think about that while I step off the stage and they introduce the next speaker. So thank you.